So, comedy writer James Cary, what is comedy such that Easter could even qualify as comedic?
Well, I guess, what is comedy? I don't have any grand theories on comedy, and you can find them if you look. But they don't really stack up because comedy is inherently subversive. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, comedy tends to work well when it's incongruity, when it's stuff that doesn't belong going, next to each other. The juxtaposition of incongruity makes me sound intelligent, at least. But it's just stuff that doesn't belong going together is kind of funny. And therefore, Easter is full of these mad moments. The idea of someone being a man and a god is already off the scale in terms of funny and strange. And then the idea that 12 guys follow him around, but the religious people, they don't believe in him. And it's the religious people that crucify him. And he's already shown that he has power over life and death. And then they say, we're going to have to kill that guy. You can imagine them thinking, I don't think that's going to work. That doesn't seem like a good idea. Didn't he say something about being the resurrection and the life? I remember him saying something like that. And so there are so many comedic elements, but unfortunately, church has become so serious. And for other Christians, they're so familiar with these stories that they've lost their comic resonance and potential. And actually, it's really interesting. Whenever you hear someone just performing the scriptures well and just reading it with actor training and rehearsal, the thing that everyone always notices is how funny it is.
Right.
It's extraordinary.
Right.
And so the idea that someone is miraculous, is wise beyond our imagination, and it just means that it's just funny. And there are tons of movies that are based on this. They're called superhero movies.
Right.
Superheroes are funny. Mm-hmm. And you get this throughout the life of Jesus, and then you particularly get it in the Easter story when religious people try to kill him even though he has power over life and death. They put him on trial. They find him guilty of being God.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
And then they crucify him. And then, of course, he dies, but then he rises again. Well, of course he does. But at the time, nobody realized that was going to happen. Yeah. Even though Jesus had said, when I die, I'm going to be risen to life. And they're thinking, I wonder what he means by that. So, there's loads of comedy within it. We kind of miss it because we're either very serious about it, or we think it's not appropriate. And actually, the Bible just continually engages our imagination, our senses, and it's just full of incongruity. And that's something that I've often seen as someone with an overdeveloped sense of humor. To me, Easter has always been funny. It's just great that in 2018, Easter Day is also April Fool's Day. So that's just a bonus.
So in highlighting the comedic elements of Easter, isn't there a danger that we just ridicule the cross?
Yeah, I think that's always a concern. And so therefore people want to be seen to be not being profane about the amazing sacrifice of Christ on the cross. And obviously it's a very raw, emotional, painful story. And therefore, the Good Friday story is full of comic irony. It's not funny in the sense of I wouldn't open with this stuff at the Comedy Store. It's not that kind of funny, but it is comic in its reversal and its irony and all these sorts of things. But plenty around it is actually laugh out loud funny. And if you just read any of the gospel accounts and plenty of the Old Testament too, when you actually read the stories and you think about what's happening, you think, wow, these are extraordinary things going on. And imagine, these are just normal people like you and me. If you or I had been born 2,000 years ago, we would have seen these things and reacted to them and just thought, these are Jesus is riding a donkey. I thought he was going to be king, and why is he doing this? Is he on 2 donkeys? How does that even work? So I think that we just kind of miss a lot of this stuff, and therefore we want to be respectful of the material, and we don't want to laugh at God. Pretty sure he doesn't like that. And there are warnings, especially in the book of Proverbs, about being a mocker, about basically sneering at everything. We don't want to sneer at everything. No. We're not sneering, but we want to. The Bible is engaging our senses and our imagination, and if we have any kind of empathy, then we will find parts of it funny. And the worry is that we just flatten everything out. We say to ourselves, Jesus is riding a donkey because he is fulfilling the prophecy of Zechariah 9, and we now know why that has happened. And we ask ourselves questions like, you know, why did they gather up 12 baskets of bread after Jesus fed the 5,000? Do those 12 baskets of bread stand for the 12 tribes of Israel, or what do they represent? And we miss the fact that they were on the point of starvation, miles away from food, and with 5 loaves and 2 fish, Jesus has fed everyone to the point where they cannot eat any more. There is so much food, it's ridiculous when you think how much they started with. They have 12 baskets, and everyone's just lying on the ground. I could not eat any more bread. Anyone? No, I can't.
It is wafer thin.
And we're thinking, those 12 baskets must have a cosmic theological meaning.
Right.
And maybe they do. It's not for me to say that they don't. But we miss the extraordinary things that are happening, and they're funny.
Right.
And we can enjoy them and let them come alive and speak to us. And that isn't inherently mocking. That isn't inherently being sacrilegious. Quite the opposite, I think, to ignore the comedy, which is something that even G.K. Chesterton does when he says that, you know, Jesus hid his mirth. That's kind of one of the things that I'm not with G.K. on. But it's there if we see it, and we just need to be open to it.
Do you have a favorite comic scene in the Bible?
It changes, but at the moment, I still find it funny that King Saul goes to the Witch of Endor in order to get advice from a prophet who is dead, who he has consistently ignored for his whole life. Oh, and now he's dead, he wants to hear from the prophet. He's gone to see a witch, even though witchcraft is not really allowed under Mosaic law. Very much
frowned on.
Frowned upon, and the amazing thing as we read it is Samuel turns up from the dead and says, we've kind of had this conversation before, and the Lord's withdrawn his favor from you, and I'm going back to the dead now. See you tomorrow. It's just like, what? It's incredible. It's so funny because it's so wrong in so many ways. And you know, and there are lots of stories like that where, you know, there are obviously funny things when Eglon in Judges gets killed. He's so fat the knife goes all the way in and all that kind of stuff. In the Gospels, my favorite would be the man born blind is a very funny scene when they're sort of like, oh, you say you were born blind. They don't believe him. They're sort of like, were you sure you were blind? Yes. You know, this isn't an, you know, it's like, I didn't get a note from school and that this is, and I've had to style it out from the rest of my life. That's not how it works. So many lovely, funny scenes, and it's only in the public reading of Scripture when it's done really well that the madness of these stories, the strangeness of them, really comes across. And it's a real shame that we don't really put up with bad music, but we do put up with poor reading of Scripture, and I think that's a bit of a shame.